Have you ever wondered how firewalls protect your data? Imagine a cyber fortress where the walls are built to shield the precious information within. These walls, in the realm of cybersecurity, are what we call firewalls. Their mission? To guard your data against the onslaught of cyber threats. Now, not all firewalls are created equal. Some are stateful, others are stateless. Each has its unique mechanisms and strategies for safeguarding your data. Stateful firewalls, like diligent sentinels, inspect every single data packet, scrutinizing not just its contents, but also its behavior. On the other hand, stateless firewalls focus on the source and destination of data packets, operating based on predefined rules. Both have their strengths and play critical roles in the vast landscape of cybersecurity. In this video, we will delve into the workings of stateful and stateless firewalls. First, let's understand what stateless firewalls are. A stateless firewall, as the name suggests, doesn't maintain any state or context about active connections. It's like a security guard that checks your ID at the door, but doesn't keep track of whether you're still in the building or when you leave. Stateless firewalls operate by examining individual packets in isolation. They scrutinize the source and destination of these data packets, along with other parameters, to determine if the data presents a threat. Think of it as a meticulous mail sorter, diligently checking the sender and recipient details on each letter, but not necessarily keeping track of the broader conversation. The parameters that the stateless firewalls use to assess the data are defined by rules. These rules are set in advance by either network administrators or the firewall manufacturer. For example, the rules might specify that data packets from a certain IP address should always be blocked, or that packets destined for a particular port should be allowed. However, while this method can be effective for dealing with known threats, it does have its limitations. Since stateless firewalls don't maintain any context about ongoing connections, they can't effectively handle more complex threats that might exploit these connections. They also cannot identify threats that fall outside the predefined rules, making them less adaptable to evolving cybersecurity landscapes. In essence, stateless firewalls are like the first line of defense in a castle. They're there to stop the obvious threats, the ones you can see coming from a mile away. But if an invader were to disguise themselves or use a more subtle approach, a stateless firewall might not be able to detect them. So, stateless firewalls rely on predefined rules to identify potential threats. They're a crucial part of any network security, but they're just one piece of the puzzle. To create a truly secure network, you'll need to combine them with other security measures, including, as we'll see in the next scene, stateful firewalls. Now that we've understood what stateless firewalls are, let's move on to stateful firewalls. These are the clever ones, the ones that don't just look at the surface, but dig deep into what's happening inside the data packets. They're like detectives, examining the characteristics of the data and its channels of communication, and keeping track of how the data behaves. This gives them a unique advantage. They can catalog patterns of behavior. Imagine a stateful firewall as a vigilant guardian, inspecting every packet that passes through, not just for what it is, but for what it does and how it behaves. If anything seems off, if a data packet starts behaving suspiciously, the stateful firewall can filter it out, protecting your network from potential threats. But here's the real beauty of a stateful firewall. It doesn't just rely on manually inputted rules and parameters set by an administrator. No, it goes one step further. If a data packet examination reveals suspicious behavior, even if that kind of behavior hasn't been manually flagged by an administrator, the firewall can recognize it and address the threat. This makes stateful firewalls incredibly adaptive. They're not just following a script, they're learning and adapting to new threats, making them a powerful tool in your cybersecurity arsenal. And there's more. A stateful firewall can be used at the edge of a network, acting as the first line of defense against external threats. But it can also be used within the network as an internal segmentation firewall, or ISFW, protecting specific segments of the network in case a malicious code gets inside. Therefore, stateful firewalls offer a more adaptive threat response compared to stateless firewalls. You might be wondering, what's the difference between stateful and stateless firewalls then? Well, let's dive into that. Stateful and stateless firewalls, while both essential components of network security, function distinctly. The primary contrast lies in their approach to handling data packets. While stateless firewalls rely on static, predefined rules, stateful firewalls are more dynamic and adaptive. Imagine stateless firewalls as vigilant sentinels, standing guard at the gates of your network. They scrutinize each data packet, checking its source, destination, and other parameters against a set of predetermined rules. If a packet doesn't adhere to these rules, it's promptly flagged or blocked. This system, while efficient, operates purely on the guidelines set by an administrator or manufacturer. It's a bit like having a bouncer at a club who only lets people in if they're on the guest list. On the other hand, stateful firewalls are more like intelligent detectives. They inspect the contents of data packets, analyzing their behavior and characteristics. They keep track of active connections and understand the context of network traffic. If a packet exhibits suspicious behavior, even if it's not explicitly defined in a rule, the stateful firewall can detect it. This allows for a more adaptive response to potential threats. It's like having a detective in the crowd who's keeping an eye on everyone's behavior, ready to act if something seems off. So, while stateless firewalls operate on a strict rule-based system, stateful firewalls provide a more comprehensive, dynamic defense by monitoring packet behavior. However, this doesn't necessarily mean one is superior to the other. Each type of firewall has its strengths and applications, and the choice between them depends on the specific requirements of your network security. As you can see, the choice between stateful and stateless firewalls depends on your specific security needs. So, where do we use stateful and stateless firewalls? When it comes to practical applications, both stateful and stateless firewalls have their unique uses. They're not interchangeable, but rather, they complement each other in creating a robust cybersecurity framework. Stateful firewalls are like vigilant sentries, constantly monitoring the behavior of data packets. They're particularly adept at handling complex threats and are typically deployed at the edge of a network. But their versatility doesn't stop there. They can also be used within a network, acting as an internal segmentation firewall or ISFW. This is especially useful in situations where there's a need to protect specific segments of the network in case malicious code manages to infiltrate. On the other hand, stateless firewalls, with their rule-based approach, are generally used in scenarios where the threats are well-defined and predictable. They're excellent at scrutinizing the source, destination, and other parameters of data packets, and blocking anything that deviates from the preset rules. However, they lack the ability to adapt to new or emerging threats that haven't been manually inputted by an administrator. In addition, stateless firewalls are commonly deployed in environments where performance is a priority. As they operate on a static set of rules, they're able to process traffic faster than their stateful counterparts. This makes them an excellent choice for high-speed networks where any delay in data transmission is unacceptable. But remember, cybersecurity isn't a one-size-fits-all proposition. The choice between a stateful or a stateless firewall will depend largely on the specific needs and threat landscape of your network. If you're dealing with sophisticated threats that keep evolving, a stateful firewall might be your best bet. But if your challenges are more about speed and efficiency, and the threats are well known and predictable, a stateless firewall could be the way to go. In essence, the choice between stateful and stateless firewalls depends on the complexity of the threats you're dealing with. To wrap things up, let's quickly revisit what we've learned today. We began our journey understanding firewalls, those essential gatekeepers of our digital world. We then delved into the specifics of stateless firewalls, which operate based on predetermined parameters set by administrators or manufacturers. These firewalls identify potential threats by examining a data packet's source, destination, and other parameters. But then, we switched gears to explore the more dynamic stateful firewalls. These advanced safeguards inspect everything inside data packets, their characteristics, and communication channels. They are like digital detectives, cataloging patterns of behavior and filtering out anything that seems off, even if it's not part of the preset rules. We also discussed the differences between these two types of firewalls. While stateless firewalls are rule-based, stateful firewalls adapt and respond to threats in real time. This makes stateful firewalls particularly useful for larger enterprises or for protecting specific segments of a network. Remember, the right firewall for you depends on your specific security needs. Stay safe and stay informed.